Hi everyone, it's John Mitchell, and in today's video we're going to look at the business environments. And what the business environments are is where it's a combination of the internal and external factors that influence how an organisation operates. So it's not just, if we're looking at environments, don't just be thinking, although it can include, but don't just be thinking of, whether we're in a drought or whether it's raining. That just think of all the factors that could influence the way an organisation operates. Now, some of these factors can be controlled by the organisation, while other factors the organisation has virtually no control over. And there's two different environments that we're going to go through. So there's the internal environment and the external environment, and we'll go through them step by step. Now, the internal environment, that's factors that are within the organisation and in which the organisation has most control over. So the people, the employees, the owners, etc., they're in the internal environment. They can still impact, but the organisation has a little bit of control, not full control, but it has a little bit of control over them. The resources, so the buildings, the land, any capital, any machinery, those type of things that are within the organisation. Policies, which are guidelines on how things should be done within the organisation. The organisation can control the type of policies that they have. Culture, the shared values and beliefs of the people within the organisation, and the processes, which are the day-to-day tasks on how they should be carried out. So they're the things within the internal environment. So you might be asked about, all right, so what factor is influencing, you might be given a situation, and what factors from the internal environment are actually influencing this particular organisation. And it could be that the employees are influencing or could impact the organisation in the future. All right, they're the type of questions you often get in this area. So now we move on to the external environment, which is factors that the organisation has little to no control over, and there's actually two levels of the external environment. So first of all, we have what we call the operating environment, and these are factors that the organisation come into direct contact with but have very little control over. So things like customers, they obviously have direct contact with their customers, but they don't really control their customers. I suppose they can control some certain trends and things like that through their marketing processes, but they don't really control what they do. And it's important to note what's the expectation here. So customers expect good quality and fair prices, and it's important that organisations keep up to date with customer trends and customer needs. Suppliers, they're the people that supply materials to the organisation. They can have a real impact on an organisation. Let's say, for example, they run out of stock themselves, then production will stop at your organisation. So it's important that you have good relationships with your suppliers. Competitors obviously have a major impact on an organisation because, well, first of all, they're rival organisations that sell similar products in the same industry, but they can come up with new technologies, new products, and that can influence whether you stay ahead of the market or fall behind in the actual market in terms of what you're trying to sell to your consumers. And then there's lots of other special interest groups such as unions in Australia, Consumer Association. There's probably lots of others that just think of, if you come up with any others that the organisation has direct contact with but very little control over. They're the factors that fit into the operating environment. The second part of the external environment is what we call the macro environment. It includes factors that the organisation has virtually no control over, and yet they still impact the organisation, and sometimes they'll impact in an indirect way. So if we look at economic factors, there could be any kind of inflation rate, unemployment rate, interest rates, consumer confidence, foreign exchange, wage rates, anything to do with the economy that can impact how an organisation is operating. So let's say, for example, you're selling, you're exporting and a lot of your goods. If the exchange rate is really high, so that means that it's really expensive for people to buy products from Australia, and that may mean that you don't make as much money because they go and shop elsewhere. Technological changes in technology will help drive change within the organisation. It's something that an organisation has to continually keep up with. If not, they could fall behind. So you don't have to necessarily be a technological company. So you don't have to be Apple and Samsung and those type of companies. But it could be technology in your operations, and that could possibly save you money or make things more expensive to produce. Legal and political, so it's important that any changes in the law or any changes in government that could impact on an organisation directly. So it could be that the government, there's been a change in government, and that may mean the funding changes in a particular industry. It could mean that laws change, and I'm not sure if you remember when work choices came in or when work choices was removed, that changed the law and the way organisations were allowed to employ people. The environment, so consumer, I've got there, consumers are being more environmentally aware, so it's expected that organisations are environmentally aware themselves in terms of how they're producing their products and their impact on the environment, but also environmental could include things like if you're in a drought, that might change your processes in terms of what you need to recycle, if you're recycling water and those type of things. Globalization is where organisations throughout the entire globe are now almost local because of our improvement in communications through the internet. We are now competing in a global market, and that impacts the way, so all of a sudden you've got global competition, and that impacts the way an organisation operates. And social factors, which is looking at the attitudes of consumers and society, and often we'll get into social responsibility later on, but so social trend is moving towards more socially responsible, where you're caring for the community and the environment. And so they're factors from the macro environment. So for questions, activities and more, come on over to teachingbubble.com.